You're now the director of
Hmm.
uh, strategy and development at
Yeah.
Grassroots Campaigns (GCI). So, since you're the most senior person on this Grass Top show, why don't you tell us who are we? What's our story? How far have we come?
I
Who.
mean, those pictures are the story. Those pictures are us doing what we do, going out and organizing communities and bringing new people into the political process and finding the folks that are disenfranchised and not into the political process and bringing them back in, and then making sure the people that are really plugged in are doing their part to engage people and spread that cycle out a little bit further. We are the boots on the ground. We are the people that go out and have the conversations that swing elections at the margins. A good field campaign, perfectly executed, is not going to turn water into wine, but it's going to win you an election where the margin of error is 4 points, 3 points, 5 points. Those must-win elections that end up determining the balance of power in Washington or a state capital. Those are the ones that field campaigns make all the difference. And investing in having those kind of personal conversations, those face-to-face conversations among neighbors and in communities, just has such a tangible and powerful impact on getting people fired up for an election, making people understand what's at stake in an election, and ultimately, swinging the balance of power one way or the other. And I think what you said earlier about not having, you know, elections where we scale up really quickly and we go out and have all these conversations and then election day comes and then everybody splits after that 2 days later. That's not what we're after. We're after a sustainable movement here. And the way that you build that is you have those conversations. You integrate politics into people's everyday lives in ways that they weren't expecting or weren't anticipating. When we go out and knock on doors, the people that we're talking to weren't starting their day saying, I'm going to have a political conversation with a stranger for 10 minutes at my door here, or 5 minutes in the interest of moving quickly. But that's what we bring into the fold. That's what we bring into the mix. We're getting people out of their comfort zones. We're making them understand the importance of community, the importance of engagement, the importance of being a part of something larger than their immediate, circle and the like, and getting themselves politically motivated and engaged in a way they might not have been before. And time after time, you see your staff coming back from a hard day of canvassing, and man, maybe they got some doors slammed in their faces, and some dogs were barking at them, and it was cold and it was rainy. But they had that one conversation with that person that may have been pissed off about this or that, or, well, these parties are all the same. I don't vote anymore. What's voting going to change? And you talk them through, you let them express their frustration, and you build that connection about, common interests and whatever it is that gets that door open. And after a little bit of conversation, you see that light bulb go on, and I say, man, I hadn't thought of it that way. You make some good points here. It's something for me to think about. Those little moments along the day of a long, grinding, hard campaign are what motivate you for more, right? And the more people we put into those positions, the more of those conversations we have, the more people think about politics in a different way. And that's how we reshape the electorate and build something long term. And then once the election comes, you've got those connections in place, you've got that foundation to build on. The more people invest in field campaigns that are ongoing, sustainable, keep on having conversations with the same folks over months and years, that's when you're really building lasting change, and that's our goal here.
So you
All right.
speak of long term, and the magic of seeing that bulb above a voter's head or a small donor's head, and
Yeah.
it makes you want to come back and keep doing the work over and over. Well, 15 years later, what's remarkable are two things I would say. One, I always say that the value of grassroots campaigns (GCI) is since it started in 2004. People come and they give their blood, their sweat, their tears, and then they go on and work at equally good
Hmm.
places, if not better places. Like you mentioned all the lawyers in the picture there. I mean, I'm
No,
sure
yeah, absolutely.
people acquire skills and go on and work for other political activist organizations and NGOs and very, very important causes.
Yeah.
But then there's some people that 15 years later are still around because they believe in the work.
Yeah.
Steve King, Wes Jones, obviously, Sue Moran, John
Yeah.
Scarlett. I mean, that's 5 of you that are still around. So who are we today? Who's still here?
Yeah, those 5 are all still here. I mean, there's some folks in our senior leadership that have been doing this a long time. Our national field director, Bridget Cleany, has been here. This is her 4th or 5th election cycle here. And I think that kind of stability and that kind of long-term vision for this place is a really powerful part of who we are and why we've been successful in doing what we do. This is, it's hard work, man. You can't just roll out of bed and mobilize, tens of thousands of voters in November. It's a long-term process. It requires long-term thinking and planning and executing step by step to get to the point of impacting an election. Having folks that are kind of committed and are bought into how to succeed in the way that you want to, and how to run a model and execute on it in a way that is going to work, I think has tremendous value. Because if you go about investing in a field campaign and you're not efficient about it, or you waste time, or you don't execute the way that you need to, those are lost votes at the end of the day. Those are lost donors. Those are people that are not getting involved when we're paid to get them involved. And I think the value of experience and just, knowing what you do is going to be successful, and that you've done it in countless, different places and corners of the electorate and states and cities and all over the place is incredibly valuable. We've run campaigns from, the middle of nowhere, rural Colorado, winning state assembly races, state house races there, to, getting donors involved in big democratic cities with tons of people walking around every day and turning out voters in densely packed precincts in East Cleveland. I mean, we've done it all. We have experience running all kinds of different campaigns at this point, and that has tremendous value. And just what you said earlier too about how these skills of canvassing translate, I think that's incredibly important too. Like, I tell this to everybody that we interview and that I talk to, even if you don't go on to a 15-year career in organizing and politics, the skills that you learn as a canvasser are fundamental, not just for politics, but for any walk of life. I mean, you're learning how to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, say what you believe in, and state your opinions and your political theory in a way that's going to be a way that's going to resonate with people. You're learning really important communication skills by canvassing. You're learning how to work really hard and approach data and integrate all kinds of different strategies into how you approach running an office and executing a campaign. All those skill sets, all those skills have application in any number of ways down the line, where you don't necessarily need to be still out there in a field office in 15 years to impact how an election is going to shape out. You can apply those skills in any number of different ways that can positively impact the community around you, not just electorally, but in day to day. And yeah, as you said, NGOs and nonprofits and charities and people working for public defenders' offices and everything else. Those are incredibly valuable baseline skills that we teach when we teach people how to canvass.
Yeah, and I would say we, as Grassroots Campaigns, GCI, we look for people who are committed to the cause of progressive politics, progressive causes. So we often talk about recruitment because, the bread and butter of what we do is identify, recruit, train people, get them out there on the streets and at the doors.
Yeah.
And I always say that one thing that we should be saying, and because the culture is to find people that are committed to progressive causes, that's the priority. But if we are to tell young people, start your career doing this, it'll set a foundation for your entire career if you want to work in politics. And let's be honest, almost everything today is either political or has a sense of negotiation. We live in a democracy, so everything
Yeah.
you need to have interpersonal skills. There's no better way to get interpersonal skills than canvassing on the street and stopping someone. We live in what I call now the attention economy. If you can get
Yeah.
somebody's attention as they're shooting to another meeting in D.C. or in the streets of New York, like places like you worked, it's really powerful. And what I'm learning is not only should you start your career that way, we live in now a digital world. People are used to texting their mother or their brother or their significant other or, talking to them on Facebook. We're losing the face-to-face value of our
Yeah.
conversations.
Well, and those interactions have so much more value now too, because you have fewer of them in a given day. Instead
Exactly.
of sitting in a cafe and just striking up a conversation with somebody, everybody's on their own devices in their own worlds, surrounded by their own bubbles and information bubbles. And you remember it all the more if somebody strikes up a conversation with you, and maybe you leave that conversation not thinking anything of it, but if you hear about a candidate just in that passing and then 2 months later, oh yeah, there's that name again, I remember when I talked to so and so. Those moments have that much more currency and that much more value in the digital climate of today. There's no question about that.
So let's you and I make a mental note to have another Grass Tops episode, a segment on maybe even with the recruitment team on
Yeah.
the values of face-to-face communications in this digital age or attention deficit economy age.
Yeah, you got it.
But this episode today is about you, and to wrap up, you're back. We're happy to have you. You're our strategy man, our director of strategy and development. So, I have a few last questions for you. What's our strategy? Who do we work for, and who do we work with? How do we do it? Why do we do it?
Yeah, I mean, we work with progressive causes and organizations, period. We don't discriminate on that end. We work with independent expenditure organizations. We work with the party itself. We work with 527s, C3s, C4s, PACs, you name it. We're all on the same team together, right? And anybody that needs to go out and have these conversations, or anybody that doesn't yet know they need to go out and have these conversations face to face, that's who we work with. When we're approaching an election year like this, on the field side of things, we kind of come at it from sort of a three-tiered process, I'd say. At this stage of things, when we're still 8 months out or so, this is when we're looking for clients that are investing in longer term projects, voter registration, organizer trainings, things along those lines. We're starting, as you alluded to earlier, a large scale voter registration project in a couple of weeks. And those are our backbone campaigns, and they're critical for us every election year. Number one, because we're going to go out and register a shitload of voters, and that's supremely important. But then on the internal side, number two, that's where we're going to be developing our leaders to step up and take on more and more responsibility and run our campaigns closer to election day. So we'll invest in these campaigns. We'll invest our staff resources and our time and our training and our recruitment dollars to be able to bring on those committed activists that are going to run through walls to change the course of this country right now. And we're going to work with them and train them up and have them run our offices and find our canvassers and train our canvassers and manage them and beat our goals and register that many more voters than we think that we're going to be able to register. And then once summertime comes, once we kind of get on the back end of that fat part of the bell curve of primaries in May and June, that's when we start going out and really talking to voters and having those persuasion conversations to light Republicans and to folks that don't show up to the polls in midterms, even though they vote in presidential elections. That's when we start building voter files for candidates and for causes. That's when we go out and train more organizers. That's when we go out and really take that next step of getting more and more people integrated into the paid canvas world and to get the skills and those experiences of talking to voters early on and figuring out what talking points work and which ones don't, and listening to what voters want and don't want. So that once we get clear of Labor Day and we get into GOTV time, early voting ballots start going out in the mail, we know who to go back and talk to. We know where to find them. and we know how to turn them out so that on November, what is it, 6th this year is the election? I don't even know. We're going to have the votes that we need in the places that we need. So we kind of go through the whole process of an election year, building and scaling up and getting more and more people involved progressively, so that once we get into October and November, in 2016, we knocked on 1.3 million doors in 11 or 12 states at the end of the day. Knocking on those doors, having those conversations, turning those voters out. We're going to do that again and then some this year. That's not usually how it works in a midterm election year. Usually you see enthusiasm wane versus a presidential year and come back up. This is not your average midterm election year. There's too much on the line. There's too much at stake for this country's present and its future. And you're seeing unprecedented levels of democratic engagement and progressive engagement. It's our job to go out and harness that and turn that enthusiasm into votes and election wins. And that's our strategy, is doing that.
What if all goes well in 2018, Wilson?
Yeah.
In December, you and I sit back and we're having a beer. What will we be happy about? What's your dream, your hope, your aspiration for 2018?
Our best case scenario, our best case scenario is that we flip the House and take back 40 some odd, 50 some odd seats for Democrats. The impossible happens and we squeak out a 51-49 majority in the Senate. We win a whole bunch of governorships in, the industrial Midwest and Florida and Arizona and everywhere else. And we make significant gains in state legislatures all around the country. Even if we don't capture the Senate back, that's a nearly impossible map to lean on at the federal level. Getting the House back and getting those governor's chairs, I think, are the two top priorities for us electorally right now. With gerrymandering being what it is for this cycle of congressional district drawing, we learned the hard way what the impact of losing governorships and losing state legislatures is. Obviously, there are some significant court cases going on that'll determine the future of gerrymandering, but we can't operate under the assumption that state legislatures aren't going to be able to redraw those lines in 2020. We have deep deficits in a lot of state legislatures around the country right now, to where even in a best case scenario, we might not be able to flip the legislatures of an Ohio or a Michigan or a Florida, but we can get close. We saw what the power of Democratic turnout can be in Virginia last year. In Virginia, Democrats flipped more seats than they've flipped in over a century. We've seen that energy and enthusiasm translating in special elections. Now we need to make sure that translates this November. And if we can make massive gains at the state legislative level, capture those governor's chairs, it puts us in position then come 2020, when we're running against Donald Trump on the ballot, to be able to make more gains at the state legislative level, complete those flips. We have those governor's chairs. We can set the terms of the next decade after that with redistricting, and we'll be in a position to not just win elections for the sake of winning them as Democrats, but putting ourselves in position. We talked a lot about the split of the Democratic Party between Hillary and Bernie voters and all this. We can't resolve those differences until we have an opportunity to govern. Yeah, absolutely, man. But those divisions don't matter until we're in a position to have policy debates about actual policies that are going to make people's lives better and how we go about accomplishing that. And until we take these steps of putting Democrats in position to win elections and to win those elections, all that other stuff doesn't matter. We want to be in a position in December of 2018 where we can start to have those conversations and those debates about who's going to be the face of the party in 2020? What direction are we really going to go in? How are we going to orient ourselves as progressives, and what's our agenda going to be to run on in 2020? And like I said, if we're not in charge of the House, or we don't have those governor's chairs, with Democratic butts in them, a lot of those conversations aren't going to matter. So my happy moment in December is that we've captured the House, we've got some governor's chairs, we've made big gains in the state legislature, and we're poised for a positive and progressive Democratic vision in 2020. And that's what it's all about. We'll hopefully be able to hang our hat on our work in 2018 here for a couple of weeks after the November elections, and then it's back to work because that's just half the battle right there.
Well, Wilson, I started. You've been at Grassroots Campaigns (GCI) for what? I started in 2004, 2005, 15 years. I've been here for a year. I came in last February. You came in when, in the summer of last year?
Yeah, I was sort of on the periphery there in March, and then I came on in honest in like July.
So, how does it feel to be back?
I mean, on one hand, I wish I was still playing with my daughter on my floor and not having to worry about this under a Clinton administration until 2020. But no, I mean, it feels necessary, is what it feels. It feels urgent. And, we've seen that all across the country with people that had never engaged in politics before showing up at our canvas offices looking for jobs and applying to be assistant canvas directors or, get involved in some capacity in a way that before Donald Trump was elected, they wouldn't have had that urgency or had that feeling. That was part of the reason that Donald Trump was elected, right? We're in a position right now where we've just seen unprecedented levels of progressive involvement and engagement in volunteer organizations that have sprung up in the wake of the 2016 election, in folks looking to go out and canvass and register voters and get involved so much earlier in the process than we usually see. And it's powerful. It's important. It's a way to realize that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's sunshine after storm, and we're going to be the ones that are pushing those clouds out of the way together. So it feels great from that standpoint to be able to play a role in that, and to play a role in harnessing all that desire and that sense of what we need to do and putting it into an efficient way to to do it right, to sculpt that energy into a powerful electoral force that's going to accomplish our goals and put us back in position to fight for a progressive future for this country.
Amen. Well, Wilson, I admire you.
I admire you too, man.
I've learned a lot about you today. You spend so many months working with someone, and then until you slow down and say, tell me about your story and tell me what you've done,
Yeah.
then you realize, wow, man, I'm really working with cool people.
Yeah, totally. Right back at you, man.
I know you're, a very experienced person. I think the world of you. I know your work ethic, and it's been really great to talk to you, man, and welcome back.
Yeah, cheers, man. Thanks. And yeah, as I said, right back at you. It's nice, as you said, to take some time and remember why we're doing what we're doing and talk about it a little bit.
Amen. All right, brother. See you on the other side.
Later.
Later, buddy.